Hi empaths, welcome back to my channel and back to Journey Through the Tarot. This week we're talking about our week with the Eight of Wands and introducing the history, symbolism, and divination of the Nine of Wands. This journey is inspired by Dirty and Divine, a transformative journey through Tarot by Alice B. Grist. She spent a day with each card. We're spending a week. We're getting a lot of our information from the Tarot History, Symbolism, and Divination by Robert M. Place, one of my Tarot teachers. So let's get started with our week with the Eight of Wands. And remember, that can be fast, passionate communication. It can be similar to the Tower in that it's divine intervention, although it's more complementary to the path we're already treading, right? It's not shaking or rattling our structure. I definitely felt that this week, a lot of symbols, a lot of synchronicities that contained information for my path. Walking every day, I noticed a squirrel would cross the road just ahead of me every single time. And I knew that there must be symbolism in that. And I looked it up today, and it, squirrels can be a symbol of resourcefulness, right? Hoarding, both positive and negative. Hoarding can be feelings that you need to release, right? Or thoughts and thought patterning that's ready to go, ready to be released, something you're hoarding. The hoarding has the connotation that it's unnecessary, right? That it's extraneous, that it's, a reactive part of you that's doing it. And I had that experience this week. I had a lot of thoughts unravel, a lot of illuminating thoughts come in, sorting through irrational thoughts, and they led to interesting conversations with different people and interactions. So that was really exciting. But then yesterday while I was walking, I came upon the same squirrel in the road. It had been hit by a car, which was so sad to walk by and see. It hadn't been run over, but it must have just been hit by the car because it was fully intact. It wasn't like splattered roadkill. It was like still a full squirrel. I saw it like blowing in the wind up ahead. Its tail was blowing in the wind. And I was like, what is that on the road? And as I approached, it was this squirrel. Now, I have no idea if it was the same one I had been seeing. I mean, there's more than one squirrel, I'm sure. But I felt really bad for this poor little guy. And I looked up the omen of a dead squirrel, and it can be needing to focus on your goals and calling on resourcefulness, right? And perhaps not paying attention to those things in your life. It can also be a collaboration falling through, not going anywhere, a relationship or collaboration not going anywhere. So I have yet to see what that is really referring to. I have an idea, but we'll see. I think my neighbors are blasting music. So sorry if you can hear that. I'll try not to let that distract me. Let's see. Anything else? Yeah, just kind of an opening of because some thoughts were eliminated or replaced, right? I felt like I was open to information and guidance. I mean, I usually am, but a new way of seeing things I was open to. Wow, that's really annoying me. That's really irritating. Only because I'm in this like box of an apartment. It's so small, and then everything vibrates, and it makes me sick sometimes when they blast something that's really bassy. Let's see. It's just really not laid out well. Let's see. Oh, I saw the symbol of fox a lot as well, which can be about being sly or coy, or someone in your life being sly or not forthright, right? They're being cunning in a way. Their intentions aren't pure or clear. They're not revealing their true intent. It can also be, a fox can also be a symbol of your attractiveness and focusing on that. What else came in around? I recorded another podcast with my co-host for the Rant podcast. And this week we were focusing on, our schedule's like every other week now. And that gives us enough time to get all the other stuff done. So the focus was me and getting to know me more. And I was like, I don't really know what exactly to focus on because that includes a lot of stuff. So I felt a little scattered, but we listened back and I was like, okay, I'm okay with that. Like, did my best not to overshare and just keep it interesting and entertaining. And I did feel a little like I'm really good about sharing, promoting her social media platforms and stuff, because I mean, from my experience, I know if you don't say it, people don't go digging usually, right? It's very rare where someone will be like, how do I get in touch with her? Let me look into the description. And not everyone's watching every video. So if you don't make the offer, if you don't say it out loud, particularly a podcast, people aren't going to know. And I could sense before when I would share her information, she'd try to get off the subject. I think she has kind of a block around self-promotion, which I understand because it can be really gross. But it's like, if you don't make the offer, if people don't know where to find you, I mean, that's what some people want to know that. So you have to say it out loud. I mean, people don't read minds in that way. So it's not about pressuring somebody. It's not about, being gross or manipulative about it. It's just, here's where you can find me. It doesn't have to have an ulterior motive or manipulation around it. So I did end up sharing. I had to say it myself. And I felt a little conflicted about that because for me, it's clear that is complementary to this work, right? That came in from my business vortex that I created for my business, Urban Empath. So if that's going to be a complement to this, I've got to promote this with it, So that was clear to me. Those intents are very clear for me that it's a fun passion project, but it also needs to also funnel people back here too, and then this can complement that if I talk about it. I think that's normal. I think that's natural. But in collaboration, you have to work through other people's ideas as well, right? And compromise or which has maybe prevented me from doing it in the past. But this is someone I trust and I really enjoy, and so small conflicts around that idea aren't a big deal. So that was interesting. That was kind of our first little conflict. It wasn't even really a conflict because we didn't even talk about it. I just ended up doing it and promoting myself. And and she likes to be really off the cuff, like not preparing much. So I did feel a little blindsided by, sometimes I feel blindsided, but it's fine. It keeps me on my toes. And so I feel like that went really well. I enjoyed that. I felt a little hesitant to share just about me. Like I said, I wasn't sure if it would be interesting, but I guess with vlogs like this, same thing, you know, is it really that interesting? But I do note that when I weave through information, like the symbols that came up for me this week, or things that I'm going through, and it's more of a broader stroke, right? A broader perspective, that can be helpful and useful for other people who can see themselves in that experience, because I am an empath. And I've noticed that that's the case. Oftentimes I'm channeling stuff for the collective with unknowingly. For example, I had a business alchemy meeting with my mentor and group of people who were all working on our business, as well as the new moon in Gemini. We had a new moon session with my mentor, Shelley Poovey of Body Attune. Her work's incredible. And I've been promoting her a lot on Instagram this week. I don't know if she agrees with every single thing I've said, but her work has really helped me and supported me. And to understand my approach, right? What I need, what supports me in business and otherwise. So we had a couple of meetings, and in one of those meetings, I think it was the new moon in Gemini, I brought my intentions, right, to the table. I had some celebrations of things I had achieved and I wanted more of. And I also had some things I wanted to work through, because some anxiety came through this week. I believe from the collective. I'm not sure where exactly the origins were. A couple of people have come to me and said were having stomach issues. And sometimes that can start, for me, anxiety can start with gut, right? So if I eat or drink something that's a little off, like it's not the right combination of bitter and sweet, or whatever, right? I have a delicate system, a sensitive system, and I have to make sure. That's why it's been so difficult and challenging to nourish it appropriately, because it doesn't need the same thing every day. And when I would get on a diet for health reasons or weight loss or whatever it is, I would find that I would stick to this regimented, disciplined plan, and that would work for me for a very long time. But then all of my nutritional needs were not being met. So my body would go into starvation mode. And one of the breakthroughs that kind of came in for me this week was that, and it's sort of this thing that has, that I've thought about a long, long, long time, and little clues. Sometimes I wish I could just learn it all at once. Like, that's my temperament. Like if I would get a new job or whatever, I talked to my podcast co-host about this. If I get a new job or whatever, I want to know everything right away. I learn very quickly. I just want to execute, right? Just teach me everything. Like my brain absorbs. I want to learn. I want to know. I can refine along the way, but don't just say, okay, we'll share a little bit here, a little bit there. I'm going to lose interest. Just tell me what to do, and then I can problem solve along the way. So I want to learn everything. So for me, that's kind of like the instruction manual of how to use your body. You know, I had the experience of premature ascension, or they sometimes call spiritual bypassing, because of my background in the Catholic Church. And what I took away from that, it's also ancestral trauma, so I don't want to blame Catholicism entirely. It's, So the spiritual bypassing, maybe not value that, right? It didn't come up as something to value or explore or look at until I got into the spiritual community, which is interesting, because you would think that, well, it wasn't the spiritual community, it was the holistic community. There we go. Yeah. it was the holistic community, because I was still ignoring my body. I was still coming out of myself. When I worked in the metaphysical bookstore in New York City, but when I was hired at the Holistic Learning Center, that's when that information started coming in. And, a holistic approach explores, emphasizes the connection of all of our bodies, the physical and the more subtle bodies, right? So it's even called a mind body, right? So I feel like that exploration didn't start until later. And I that's how it kind of came into me this week, that some of the religious principles that I had adopted were not made for women. A lot of it was to get men out of lust, and so when I kind of awoke to that this week, it kind of came in like lightning. I was like, oh, okay. See, you have to know yourself and you have to know what's for you. And sure, there are some women who live in lust, and then and a lot of the wisdom and teachings support their journey. For me, that wasn't great wisdom, because it made me ignore all of my body's needs. And I kind of took some of that information and ran with it and thought, yeah, material needs don't matter. That includes needs of the body. And so I felt like, this is what it felt like for me coming in. Like, right, okay, right. So it's, the way I show up in life, the way I live in life, it's clear what I value. It's clear I value spiritual process, our creative process, kindness, and emotional intimacy, and healing, right? And kind of collecting information, like a lot of things that can disconnect us from the body. So my learning curve is to ground down and make friends, make peace there. My mentor talks about psychic inversion, which it can be developed from trauma, right? From a tumultuous environment in childhood, from a caregiver where we kind of can't relax because we never know what we're going to get. And it benefits us for safety reasons, right? To protect ourselves, to be able to predict what the other person's going to feel before they feel it. And then it comes with us into adulthood, where it's not beneficial at all, right? Because even if I tune into what someone's feeling, it's a glimpse in the moment. And feelings flow. They flow in, they flow out. So if I get an intuitive hit or psychic connection about what someone's feeling about me, for example, in a moment, that doesn't help either of us, because it's none of my business. Their emotional process, and it's not information I can really use, right? Because it's not the full picture. It's a moment, and it's fleeting. So the psychic inversion is something that, and it's describing the chakra system, right? How each chakra might develop, where the inner wheel of the chakra might have become the outer wheel, right? So our relationship with the outside world as empaths is this is why we might confuse someone else's experience for our own, someone else's emotion, someone else's pain. We might confuse it as our own. So I had a lot of like epiphanies like that this week, where I started realizing how I had been taking those glimpses and moments and reacting from that place, right? That's another thing. Empaths have such reactive nervous systems that the best strategy for me in the human design system, I'm manifesting generator. The best strategy for me for decision making and showing up is waiting to respond. Respond being the key word, not react, right? Not being reactive. So that's been the learning curve for me. It's one of my goals, coming back to the omen of the squirrel. What are your goals? One of them, sometimes we look at finances only, but including finances is very new for me. In my goal setting, in the collective consciousness and the spiritual community, the religious community, empaths, anybody that's been indoctrinated with that idea that we shouldn't have material needs, or that they are not as important as spiritual nourishment. Well, that becomes a question of survival, doesn't it? And if we're in survival mode, it's nearly impossible to transcend or get out of the parasympathetic nervous system. It's very challenging. So it needs to be part of the infrastructure of the business. And that's something I've been working on too. It's not just of service. You have to have something coming back to you in return. It's got to be reciprocal. And that is the learning curve for me in all relationships. Relationship to my work, that's been a learning curve, right? Not overgiving. In romantic relationships, friendships, right? Allowing it to be reciprocal. So creating win-win experiences has been a goal of mine. Coming back to, I always go on a tangent. Coming back to the business alchemy and the moon session, someone else in the meeting had the intention that she wanted support energetically in feeling motivated to clean, because it's that time of year, right? It's time for spring cleaning, and she just didn't feel motivated to clean. And that wasn't my intention for the session at all. That wasn't even on my radar. So, but it's funny, the very next day after the moon session, I was so motivated to just deep clean my apartment. And that's what I did. Particularly the bathroom. I just wanted to just deep clean that. And it felt really good and rewarding. And then I remembered, oh, that's right, the moon session, and I'm an empath, and that probably came in for me, right? It was contagious for me too. So, and then, cleaning the bathroom, I was motivated to clean the entire apartment, but focusing on the bathroom, that's the room in the house that's associated with emotions and our emotional process. So, and for me also creative process, I'll have a lot of creative ideas come in when I'm in the shower, right? You're surrounded by water. So, anytime you're in the bathroom. So, sometimes when I'm in there, just even doing my makeup, I'll have ideas come in, creative ideas, inspiration, new thoughts. So water's really therapeutic for me in all ways. And, this idea of divine intervention, things clearing out, this also looks to me like something clearing out, right? It can be something new coming in. It can be communication coming in, passion, right? The anxiety coming in that seemed to come out of nowhere could certainly be associated with the Eight of Wands. It was also this clearing out for me with new ideas sparked. New ideas about even more of this clearing out. And the squirrel was the symbol of that, right? clearing out of old ideas, right? I believe so. And oh, because of hoarding, yeah. The dead squirrel, right? Where are we hoarding? And that can be emotionally. So the releasing, the purging, the purification of these old patterns. It can be symbolized in scrubbing the bathroom clean. Also, what I was also saying about wishing that I just got all the information all at once. I realized I changed thoughts so many times. It came into me for me to use something called metabolic confusion, where you don't eat the same way every day, right? Basically, so that your body feels satisfied and nourished, and you keep vitality high, metabolism high, and you promote ideal gut health as well. In that, sometimes if I eat all plant-based for too long, and it could just be my approach, I start to feel really off. It doesn't feel good for me. So there are times where that feels okay, like when it's warmer, I can do that for longer, right? The seasons really affect what I feel nourished by. And that might be duh to most people. I'm telling you, like, I was completely dissociated from what was good for me physically. I just never thought about it. It just never was on my radar. I never had to. And then, sometimes divine intervention can come with a health issue. And that's what happened to me last year. Last year. And I had to start considering all these things. So, and now that's one of my main goals, is really making that a science, because that's another thing my brain wants to do. It wants to make everything a science. Like, it wants to test theories and gather information, right? And just figure things out, figure life out. I was also asked to edit and revise my friend's crystal ebook, and upon reading through it, it made me feel valued that she came to me. It was a collaborative effort, so I think someone else had done the majority of the writing, but she was like, the main person who had to give the green light for it or whatever, the thumbs up for it, wasn't approving it. And I was just like, okay, well, what are his concerns? Like, just let me know. And then are you insecure about anything? Like, is there something I should keep a lookout for? And it wasn't clear. So I just looked into it, and I realized some of the information that came through, or that was written, was not 100% accurate. So the feedback I gave was really appreciated there. And that's a topic I'm passionate about. So I can see how that might relate to this, right? Like, she had frustrations. That could be a frustrating communication, the Eight of Wands. And then it's something I'm passionate about communicating about crystals and crystal healing. So that was another thing that happened. And she was so grateful that I took the time to give my feedback, and it was really detailed. I'm also like, there's typos here and here. Like I can't, like my eye is just so detail oriented. I have a very earthy style in that way. So, which is why I want to make everything a science, right? It's like this perfectionistic, controlling thing that's not always on my side. I have to work with it and work around it sometimes. But anyway, I think that's everything. I always think it's just going to be a short share and then right into the next card. And there's always so much more that comes in. So anyway, that was my week with the 8 of Wands. That's how my week was spent. And yeah, I think that's about it. Let me know in the comments what your experience was. And let's jump into the 9. Okay, so we're looking at the 9 of Wands, right? Okay, maybe this isn't going to work. How do I usually do this? I feel really rusty and out of practice for whatever reason. The 9 of Wands, probably because I'm doing a new thing, right? Like that's something when, you know, a big shift has happened, it kind of is a reset. Do you ever notice that? And then things that you've done over and over again, all of a sudden, wait, I feel rusty. It's like, oh, okay, I guess it's a new start. It's a new beginning. But this card did not make me feel very hopeful about this week, but there are some good things about it. So let's get into it. The 9 of Wands, a man with a bandaged head looks suspiciously over his shoulder and clutches his wand. 8 other wands form a defensive barrier behind him. This man has been successful in holding his position against attack. He has learned to strengthen his position and keeps himself prepared for action. He is a strong opponent. He has learned from his experiences, but they have also left him scarred both physically and emotionally. He may be alert and able to defend himself, but he may also be overly defensive and unable to relax and enjoy life. Smith again makes use of a stage-like foreground with the background separated, like a painted backdrop, suggesting that this is a play performed for our benefit. See how he's on like a platform, and then the scene with the 8 other wands in the background there, like a play. Interesting, right? I never considered that. And I was talking to my podcast co-host about this when we were during our recording. This came in, but I didn't say it out loud for whatever reason. I never got the opportunity to express it, but we were talking about how artists have more opportunity or maybe more courage to explore their darkness. And I was saying it's because we can separate it out. And if we can all do that, it can, you know, the things we haven't explored or owned, those exiled parts, can be what creates compulsivity. And, you know, because we're able to separate it out and say, well, that's a character, and we are already kind of doing that. I think that's why it is easier. It is more accepted, you know, for artists to explore that. Plus, if you're going to have an interesting story, you know, unless it's for kids, even in children's, you know, content created for children, there's a bad guy, right? There is like an evil element. So, yeah, exploring your darkness. I mean, that's what it's all about. And not darkness as an evil, but the shadow. That's where embracing more of the shadow, accepting those parts that you've exiled, that's where the power is. It's where your potential lies, right? Huge creative potential. Admitting that you're a human and you have human needs, it's important. And I think sometimes the strategy is to ignore that, and it just doesn't work. So that's what Robert Place has to say about the 9 of Wands. Interesting that it's on a stage. So it's a part in a way, right? And in internal family systems model of healing, we talk about parts, right? It's parts therapy. So remembering that might be important this week. We'll see if it shows up. So what might it mean if the Nine of Wands shows up for divination, right? If we're doing a reading and it pops up in the spread, it can mean getting tired, a lot of energy expended, perseverance, determination, wounded warrior, not yet ready to give up, last ditch effort, almost to the end. The figure leans upon his staff and has an expectant look as if awaiting an enemy. Behind him are eight other staves erect, in orderly disposition like a palisade. The card signifies strength in opposition. If attacked, he will meet the onslaught boldly. With this main significance, there are all its possible adjuncts, including delay, suspension, adjournment. And then Alice B. Grist's intuitive meaning, the careful use of one's skill and achievement to negotiate the way forward. Trust in what you have learned and allow it to buoy you up without necessarily having to place it on the table to be seen. Nothing needs proving. You have the necessary ability to walk whatever tightrope presents itself. And then the Biddy Tarot, resilience, courage, persistence, test of faith, boundaries. And the Nine of Wands comes in as a sign that even in the face of adversity, you stand tall and strong. You may be on the edge of exhaustion, but you are resilient, persistent, and ready to do what it takes to get to the finish line. You know, the squirrel represented resourcefulness. So that might be coming in this week, calling on our resourcefulness. This card may also come when you feel battered and bruised, having endured significant challenges and struggles along your path. Just when you think you are making progress, you suffer another setback. The Nine of Wands asks you to trust that this is merely a test of your grit and resilience, and know that every time you overcome an obstacle, you are getting stronger. You have the inner resources necessary to overcome any difficulty you encounter, even though it may seem impossible at the time. See this nine as an assurance that you will eventually prosper if you maintain your position. And if you do not succeed at first, then try again. The Nine of Wands encourages you to keep pushing. You are so close to the finish line. Even if you want to give up, this is your final challenge before you reach your goal. So don't let go of your hopes and dreams when you are so close to making them a reality. Stand firm in the face of your challenges and you will achieve your goal. Talking about being so close to the finish line is because it's a 9, right? And 10 is generally the completion. Others may try to oppose your plans, make things difficult for you, or even attack you for what you are putting out into the world. Often they do it because they're jealous of your success or are projecting their own insecurities and fears on you. Don't let them get to you. You are a change maker and you have a vital message to share with this world. Don't dim your light because of others' insecurities. Interesting how in the podcast when I was promoting myself that came up, right? So they overlap. On a more positive note, you have people who support you. The Nine of Wands invites you to find your cheerleaders and personal bodyguards, those who will protect you from the ongoing challenges and cheer you on to the finish line. Even if others oppose you, you have many more people who support your cause. Let them help you. Finally, the advice of the Nine of Wands is to establish your boundaries and fiercely protect those lines. If you allowed others to stand in your way or deplete your energy, it is likely that you have not asserted yourself effectively with those people to protect yourself. Get clear on what you need in this situation to be successful and reach your goals, and then communicate those needs to others. On the same note, be aware that too many barriers will prevent others from getting close to you or helping you. Bring your conscious awareness to how you are proactively using boundaries to protect your energy. Okay, more boundary work. All right. And maybe being clearer with the boundaries, right? I mean, once we're clearer ourselves, that awareness comes in. That's where it all starts, right? The transformation begins with awareness. So we'll see how this shows up this week. It's always a surprise. It's usually unexpected, right? Because if it was expected, then chances are we already went through it. And we're calling in new experiences. So, so let's use some sound to integrate further the experience of the Eight of Wands week, right? So we can embody whatever wisdom we can squeeze from that, from those epiphanies, and, you know, informative synchronicities and guidance and wisdom that came in. And then also usher in the week of the Nine of Wands, looking for synchronicities around that card to deepen our understanding there. So you might want to close your eyes, get in touch with your breath, think about your Eight of Wands week, and look and set the intention, plant the seeds, right? Like the seeds of the dandelion. We release them with the sound vibration, much like the seeds of the dandelion go out with the wind, right? They're carried away. And the sound carries it far and wide so that it can boomerang back to us, those synchronicities. Good. Coming back to the room. So we'll see how that shows up. Nine of Wands week. And then we're going to the Ten of Wands, and that is a great card. So looking forward to that. But first we have to go through and test our boundaries, right? And strengthen them in order to get to that fulfillment of the 10. So interesting how these cards overlap, right? I'd love your experiences. Let me know how you're experiencing these cards. Thanks for staying on this journey with me. I know it was a big commitment. I'm hoping to take some of the work off your hands so that we can share this together, right? And share the information, put it all here in these videos. And so you can kind of understand this process, working with these archetypes to strengthen these filters. It's supportive for empath empowerment and self-actualization. Also, if you want a personal reading session, right? If you're going through some challenges right now, you need support. You're not feeling seen or heard. That's what my work specializes in, creating these solid boundaries, energy boundaries, right? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Reach out to me, urbanempath.com/services. That'll be linked in the description here. Also, thank you for everyone donating to the channel. It's what's keeping it going, right? And I'm able to continue creating content here. So I really appreciate all of that. And thanks for everyone messaging me in the comments as well as privately about how you're resonating with the work, all the different series that I started on this channel. And if you have other ideas, please do let me know. I really enjoy bringing you content here. All right, I will see you in the next video. Bye, Empath.